He stood in the pouring rain, his clothes soaked, his heart heavier than he'd ever known. For the first time in his life, Ethan Cole, one of the richest men in New York, had just been rejected, not by a business partner or an investor, but by the only woman who ever saw him as ordinary. The irony cut deep. He had spent months pretending to be poor, hoping to find someone who loved him for who he truly was. And now that he had found her, she had walked away not knowing that the man she thought was a broke mechanic was actually worth billions. It all started 3 months earlier, when Ethan, tired of fake smiles and gold-digging admirers, decided to disappear from his world of penthouses and private jets. He took on a new name, Ethan Blake, and moved into a small apartment on the edge of Brooklyn. There, he found a job at a local car repair shop owned by an old friend who agreed to keep his secret. For the first time in years, Ethan felt free. No board meetings, no suits, no pressure, just grease-stained hands, the smell of engine oil, and the hum of an honest day's work. That's where he met Maya. She walked into the shop one rainy afternoon, struggling with a broken-down car and an even more broken day. Her kindness was immediate. She smiled even when she was frustrated, and she thanked him for helping her even though she barely had enough money to pay for the repair. You don't meet people like that anymore, Ethan thought, watching her leave that day. She wasn't impressed by luxury, she was impressed by sincerity. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan wanted to be seen not as a billionaire, but as a man. Over the next few weeks, they kept running into each other. Sometimes at the small cafe near the garage, sometimes on her way to work. They talked for hours about books, dreams, and life. Maya told him she wanted to open a small art studio for underprivileged kids. She didn't know who he really was, and he didn't want her to. Every moment with her made him feel alive, and every lie he told about himself made him feel guilty. But he kept the act going, afraid that if she knew the truth, she would treat him like everyone else, like a wallet, not a heart. One evening, they sat together on a park bench watching the sunset. "Ethan," Maya said softly, "you're different. You don't talk like most men I know." He smiled faintly, looking at her eyes glowing in the fading light. "Maybe because I've lived a different kind of life," he said, careful not to say too much. She laughed. "Whatever it is, don't change. I like you just the way you are." Her words stung because he knew she loved the version of him that wasn't real. Still, he told himself he'd reveal the truth one day. Just not yet. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan fell deeply in love. But the truth he hid began to build walls between them. He wanted to tell her about the life he lived before the mansion in Manhattan, the private jet, the $1 million watch gathering dust in his drawer. But each time he tried, fear held him back. What if she left? What if she thought he had played her for a fool? Instead, he stayed silent, building castles of lies while pretending to be a man who earned barely enough to survive. The breaking point came one Friday evening. Ethan invited Maya to dinner at a small restaurant, nothing fancy, just cozy and warm. But halfway through the meal, she sighed deeply, her eyes sad. "Ethan," she said quietly, "I don't think this is going to work." He froze. "What do you mean?" "You're kind. You're wonderful," she said. "But I can't keep dating a man with no direction. You have no goals, no ambition. You seem lost." Her words cut deep. She wasn't cruel, just honest. She didn't want wealth. She wanted stability, and the man she saw, the poor mechanic, couldn't give her that. Ethan sat in stunned silence as she walked away that night. He wanted to shout the truth, to tell her that he could give her the world, that everything she thought he lacked was just an illusion. But pride and pain stopped him. He had wanted to be loved for who he was, and now that he had been, he realized how fragile love built on lies could be. The rain poured harder outside as he whispered to himself, "You got what you wanted, Ethan. She loved you for being ordinary, and now you've lost her for the same reason." For days, Ethan disappeared from the garage, drowning in regret. His friend Mark, who knew his secret, finally confronted him. "You wanted to be real, man. Well, you were, and you fell in love for the first time. So what are you going to do now? Hide behind your billions again? Ethan looked up, his eyes dark with determination. No, he said. I'm going to fix this. She may have rejected me as a poor man, but she deserves to know the truth, the whole truth. A week later, Maya received an invitation she never expected, a formal letter delivered to her small apartment. It was from Ethan Cole, the billionaire philanthropist whose name was on every business magazine cover. At first, she thought it was a mistake, but then she saw the handwritten note attached. Meet me. I owe you the truth. Her hands trembled as she read it. Could it be her Ethan, the one who worked at the garage? Confused and trembling, she decided to go. Maya arrived at the grand mansion, her heart racing as the heavy gates slowly opened. She had seen this place before on TV, in magazines, in the dreams of every woman who wanted to taste luxury. But never did she imagine walking through its doors. The marble floors shimmered beneath her feet, chandeliers hung like frozen rain, and a string quartet played softly in the distance. Then she saw him, Ethan, standing at the center of it all, dressed in a tailored black suit that made him look like he had stepped straight out of another world. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The man she had known, the one who smelled of engine oil and coffee, the one who laughed under streetlights, was gone. In his place stood the billionaire she had seen on magazine covers. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling. He nodded slowly. My real name is Ethan Cole, he said, stepping forward. I should have told you the truth from the start. I didn't mean to lie, Maya. I just wanted someone to see me, not my money. Her eyes filled with disbelief and hurt. You pretended to be poor all this time? She asked, her voice breaking. Do you have any idea how humiliating this feels? You made me open up to someone who didn't even exist. He took a step closer, desperate to make her understand. You don't get it, Maya. Every woman I met wanted the billionaire, not the man. You were the first person who made me feel human again. Tears welled in his eyes as he added, I fell in love with you long before I knew how much it would hurt to keep lying. Silence filled the room as Maya turned away, trying to process everything. The pain of betrayal and the shock of truth battled in her heart. You say you wanted to be seen, she said softly, but you didn't even trust me enough to show me who you were. Her words struck deep. Ethan's voice trembled as he replied, You're right. I was a coward. I thought I was protecting myself, but I ended up losing you instead. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan reached into his pocket and handed her a small envelope. This isn't a bribe, he said quietly. It's something you told me you always dreamed about. Inside, Maya found a deed to an art studio, the same one she had once described to him over coffee. You deserve it, Maya, for everything you've given me: honesty, humility, love. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she looked at him. You really are impossible, she whispered. She walked toward the door, her emotions tangled between anger and love. Before leaving, she turned to face him one last time. You could have had everything, Ethan, she said, her voice soft but firm, but you chose to build love on a lie. And with that, she walked out, leaving behind the man who had everything but the one thing he wanted most, her. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion felt emptier than ever. Ethan tried to bury himself in work, but every meeting, every success felt hollow. He would glance at the art studio documents on his desk untouched, unsigned, and feel a pang of longing. For the first time, all his billions couldn't buy him peace. He realized then that love built on truth was worth more than all the gold in the world. Then one afternoon, as the city basked in golden sunlight, his phone buzzed. It was a text, just one line. The studio is beautiful. Thank you. It was from Maya. He stared at the screen for a long time, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Maybe forgiveness was an instant. Maybe it would take time. But it was a start, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, love could find its way back, even after all the lies. Weeks later, Ethan couldn't resist visiting the new art studio. He parked his car a block away and walked, wearing casual clothes, blending in like any other man. When he reached the glass doors, he saw her inside, Maya laughing with a group of children as they painted bright colors on canvas. Her eyes sparkled the way they always did when she was doing what she loved. For a moment, Ethan just stood there, quietly watching. He didn't want to interrupt. He only wanted to make sure she was happy even if it wasn't with him. Then Maya looked up, their eyes met through the glass, and time seemed to freeze. She didn't look angry anymore, just surprised, and maybe, deep down, a little glad. She walked toward him slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. When she stepped outside, the wind carried the scent of paint and hope between them. "You came," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "I didn't mean to disturb you," he replied. "I just wanted to see what you built. It's beautiful, Maya. You're beautiful." Maya crossed her arms, half smiling. "You always know what to say, don't you?" Ethan laughed faintly. "Only when I mean it." There was a pause, not awkward, but heavy with everything left unsaid. Finally, she sighed. "Ethan, what you did, it hurt. You made me question what was real. But the truth is," she hesitated, then met his eyes, "even when I thought you were poor, I fell for you. Not your car, not your money. You." Ethan took a step closer, his heart pounding. "Then maybe there's still hope," he whispered. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time since their separation, she saw not the billionaire, not the mechanic, but the man who had risked everything just to be loved. "Hope," she repeated quietly. "Maybe, but if we ever start again, it has to be honest. No secrets, no masks." He smiled gently. "No more pretending," he promised. They stood there under the soft glow of the setting sun, and something shifted, a quiet forgiveness that words couldn't fully express. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small keychain, shaped like a paintbrush. "A reminder," he said, handing it to her, "that even when I messed up, I never stopped believing in your dream." She smiled faintly, tears forming in her eyes. "You really are impossible," she murmured again, but this time, her voice was full of warmth. In the weeks that followed, they began to rebuild, not as a billionaire and a dreamer, but as two people learning to trust again. Ethan helped fund art programs for local schools, but he never took credit for it. He wanted Maya to have her space, her independence, her pride, and she, in turn, reminded him what it meant to live, to enjoy small moments instead of chasing perfection. One night, months later, they attended a local art exhibition together. Reporters swarmed Ethan, flashing cameras and asking questions about his new girlfriend, but Maya just smiled and squeezed his hand. He leaned close and whispered, "They don't know that you were the one who taught me how to love quietly." She laughed softly. "And you taught me that even lies can turn into truth if the heart learns from them." When the event ended, Ethan took her to the rooftop of his mansion, the same place where their story had almost ended. The city lights sparkled below, and a soft breeze brushed her hair. "Do you remember the first time you said I had no direction?" he asked. She chuckled. "You were very convincing as a broke mechanic." He grinned. "Well, I found my direction now." "Oh, really?" she teased. "And what's that?" Ethan took her hand. "You." Tears filled her eyes as she looked at him, not because of the mansion or the city skyline, but because of the honesty she finally saw in his gaze. No lies. No masks. Just love. "You're crazy," she whispered. "Completely," he said with a smile. Before pulling her close, the moment felt timeless, like every lie, every mistake, every heartbreak had led to this single truth. They were meant to find each other, no matter how broken the path. From that night on, their lives intertwined again, this time built on truth. Maya's studio grew into a foundation for young artists, while Ethan continued to support her dream without overshadowing it. They traveled, laughed, argued, and built a life not defined by money, but by meaning. And in quiet moments, When Maya caught him staring at her, he'd say, "I still can't believe the woman who rejected me once ended up owning my heart." She'd laugh every time and reply, "And I still can't believe the broke mechanic I fell for turned out to be a billionaire." It became their running joke. A reminder of how far they'd come. Every scar, every lie, every tear had turned into a story they could finally smile about because love had won. Not money, not pride, just love. As the years went by, Ethan and Maya's story became something of a legend, not because of his wealth or her success, but because they proved that even the most broken beginnings could bloom into something beautiful. On the balcony of their shared home, under a sky full of stars, Ethan whispered, "If I could go back, I'd still pretend to be poor, only this time I'd tell you sooner who I really am." Maya smiled, resting her head on his chest. "Maybe you had to lose me first," she said softly, "to understand what love truly means." And as the night wrapped around them, their laughter, pure and real, echoed into forever.